I'm Greg DeRocher, and this is Chamber Web TV, focusing on election 2018 and the candidates from both Cambridge and Kitchener South Hespeler. Here in our studio today is a candidate for the NDP party for the riding of Cambridge, Marjorie-Ann Knight. Marjorie, wonderful to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for coming in.
Anytime.
It's the beginning of the writ period, basically. Tomorrow the writ drops, and I guess the horses are out of the gate.
Well, it's a very exciting time, especially for a first-time person like me. It's a learning experience, and it's quite exciting.
Yeah. Well, I guess my first question is, understanding the temperature of politics these days in Ontario, Canada, maybe the world. Marjorie-Ann, why politics?
And that is probably one of the best questions you could ask me. You know, it was a very funny thing. I have been working with the 15 and Fairness group. I've had some ups and downs in my own personal life. And one of the things that I firmly believe in is that rolling over is not an option. You always have to keep going forward. Mm-hmm. And so I was working with them. I was working with the Social Planning Council, with their Poverty Symposium. Mm-hmm. And I was approached by this gentleman, you may know, Mike Farnan.
Oh, yes.
And he says, Marjorie, you must run. And I'm like, no. Why would I run? I'm not a politician type of person.
Mike's a pretty persuasive guy.
But you know, it was a year. It was a year of him everywhere he saw me, and other people coming up to me and saying, you know, you should run. And at one point I had to stop and say, okay, I'm not a politician. I know that. I'm never going to be the consummate politician. It's not in my nature. But I am very passionate about people. Mm-hmm. And I'm very passionate about us being a community and working together so that we all rise. I feel very strongly that we all rise or fall together. Mm-hmm. And falling is not an option. So, after having words with other people, with my family members, here and away, I decided I would.
Oh, good for you.
It took me about a year to do that.
Well, it's nice that people, you know, it's nice to hear that people don't fall into politics, right? They're not following a path that they've perceived to be. You know, it's something that kind of dropped into your sphere. You analyzed it and decided, yeah, that'd be good. Marjorie, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I was born in Canada, by accident, I'm told. I was born while my parents were both studying in Quebec. Mm-hmm. My mom was doing her master's, my father his bachelor's. They already had my sister and were having no children in Canada. And
oops,
I came along. I was back in Jamaica by the time I was 2. I grew up there. I had a great upbringing there, middle class. My mom actually worked for the Urban Development Corporation. Mm-hmm. She worked part-time for the UN, Habitat, Sustainable Development, World Bank. My father was an economist, and I was probably their middle problem child.
We all are.
I came up to Canada in the 80s and went to university in Quebec. I graduated with a degree in sociology, and I stayed around for a while, had my children, twin girls, and unable to care for them here because I couldn't work enough money to pay for childcare. Yeah. I packed my children and went back home to mama. And I established a career there in the hotel industry. I worked with Sandals Resorts. Yeah. I was an executive manager with them. I also worked with the Wyndham Kingston, which was the premier business hotel there. And when my children were 14, they have learning disabilities. They were born early. Mm-hmm. And I decided, you know, after 5 years with 4 different schools and moving them all around, we needed to A, settle, and B, settle somewhere where the school system was accommodating to help them with their disability so that they could succeed in life. And so I looked for a small town that was within an hour of Toronto. And Cambridge. Cambridge was the second. I had looked at 5 different areas. Cambridge was my second stop. Mm-hmm. And within 3 days, I knew there was nowhere else I was going. I was coming here. I went home, packed up, moved here.
Yeah,
I've
those
been here since 2001.
We all think Cambridge is the center of the universe too, as I'm sure you've
And
heard
if it's
before.
not, it should be.
Yes, exactly. Andrea Horvath, your leader, has been out campaigning for a long time now and talking about some of the things she would like to see. She's been a strong advocate for a couple of the areas that are important to the chamber movement. But we have 4 pillars that the Ontario Chamber of Commerce has developed around a campaign called Vote Prosperity, strengthening business competitiveness, fostering job creation, building healthy communities, improving government accountability, all of which your leader talks about in her platform From Stem to Stern. The first one I want to talk about is strengthening business competitiveness. As you well know, the electricity file has been one of Andrea's pet peeves, but it's also been business's pet peeve as well. Costs have gone through the roof. We are selling off our surplus energy to other provinces and states, to other individuals. And Ontario businesses are just saying, well, why can't we buy that surplus electricity for at or even slightly below, because it's being consumed here in Ontario. What are your thoughts on that being a possibility?
I think that hydro is a most important topic to all of us, business and citizens.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have all been charged way too much for that. I think it is imperative, as Andrea has said, that we take back public control over hydro. Until we take back public control over hydro, we can't make the changes we would all like to see. I think there are things such as that time of use charges, which to me really make no sense.
Mm-hmm.
They said to us, we need to conserve, we need to save, we need to make sure that, we don't overuse and costs and big things went on around this. But at the end of the day, what did it do? Nothing except make them more money.
Mm-hmm.
Because they said, they cried poor. We did so well at conserving energy that their profits went down. And then they had to cry poor. And then what happened? Our rates immediately went up.
Yeah, because they still need the same amount of money.
And the bottom line is that, no, that was not right.
Mm-hmm.
We did what was asked of us, and we were penalized for it. Well, that needs to roll back.
Yeah.
And we need to get back onto a fair charging regime
And
for
I
us
think,
all.
I think, personally, when the Ontario Chamber released this platform, I thought it was a fair ask. If we're selling it to Quebec or New York State or Ohio or whoever at a reduced rate, why shouldn't we be able to purchase that surplus energy if we can store it somewhere? If we can create that capacity, why shouldn't we be able to buy it?
Well, I think that's something that they will have to look at. And Andrea and her team of experts, I know where my expertise lies. I'm a consumer.
Yeah, we all are.
And I want to see
But speaking
better
about
rates.
that, your leader says that you want to buy back Ontario or Hydro One. But at the same time, she's also committing to reducing hydro rates by 30%. Do you really believe that bringing the ownership back into control of the province, without creating another debt capacity on top of that you'll be able to reduce rates by 30%?
Well, I think first of all, what we need to do first is to bring it back into public hands, which means that we need to be the majority owners of that. Doesn't mean that we have to buy 100%, but it means that we have to buy enough to be in charge.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first difference. How will we do that? We would use our dividends that we get for the shares that we do have and put those back into purchasing shares as they come on the market. Now, once we have 51%, then we can start to make changes.
Yeah.
And that is the aim. And yes, I do think that there are areas in which we can generate savings for everyone.
It speaks to the accountability factor as well. But,
Absolutely.
Bill 148, another issue that I think, for the most part, the NDP supported most of it. However, I do believe, and I do think that Andrea Horvath did talk about a window being a little bit longer for implementation than what Kathleen Wynne had presented to the community. there's been a tremendous amount of business anxiety over Bill 148, and really not a whole lot of it with respects to the $15 an hour. And I'll tell you why. The vast majority of businesses do not pay less than $15 an hour. So it hasn't been, other than when you talk about the supply chain effect and all of those kinds of things, it's caused a little bit of anxiety. But the bigger anxiety has been around the other 172 regulations that were changed at the same time. That all, 100% of them, penalize business more. And in fact, in reality, for even those small businesses who were impacted by the $15 increase, that was only half of what it was going to cost them under the Bill 148. The other half came from the other 172 regulations. When is a government going to understand that nobody has any money to do anything with, even business, unless a business transaction takes place? There is no money unless there's a business transaction. So the reality of it is the business or government should covet business transactions. They should be doing everything they can do to promote business transactions to happen. When do you think a government's going to, do you think that Andrea's leadership and an NDP government of the province of Ontario is going to principalize the fact that business needs to happen in this province?
You know, I'm very proud to be a member of her team. And one of the reasons why I'm so proud to be a member of her team is around this whole Bill 148. And I know sometimes that doesn't make me very popular with the Chamber of Commerce, but I've spent 2 years advocating for 15 and fairness. And for me, the $15 was important.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a magic bullet, but it managed to bring people up at least
mm-hmm.
to the line of poverty. I don't know if you understand what it's like to live like that. But even when it came to my children being in school and I'm earning a minimum wage, and they have this little thing called Friday pizza. Do you know how demoralizing it is as a parent to not be able to afford Friday pizza?
Oh, yeah,
And then you
sure.
have to make decisions, as we all do when we come to budgeting.
But that speaks
And to do that, and so we need to make sure that people have a decent wage. But we also need to make sure that it's fair for people. We don't want people to be summarily dismissed
mm-hmm.
just because they can be. We want people to feel that they can complain about things happening in the business
mm-hmm.
and be listened to and not be penalized for it. We want to make sure that people are safe in their work
mm-hmm.
environment. No one deserves to go to work and not return home in one piece.
Yeah.
There are all these, there are so many of these regulations out there, but I really feel that what it is doing, it is evening a play field more than it is penalizing people. I think that for a long time workers were on the other end of this, the shorter end of the stick,
mm-hmm.
where they were the ones who were being penalized. Mm-hmm. They were the ones that were being targeted. And things were not quite fair. Not quite fair. And I think in some ways now they're making it fair. I worked as a temporary worker through a temp agency. And I sat side by each to a lady, and we both did the same exact job. I got $10 an hour. She got $15 an hour. She got $15 an hour plus bonuses, plus benefits, plus.
mm-hmm.
I got $10 an hour. I understand the bonuses and the things, those are particular to the business.
Mm-hmm.
But why would she get 15 and I get 10?
Oh,
We're doing
no
the
question.
same exact thing.
No question.
And these are the things that are so
Yeah.
important to me and to Andrea and the NDP.
And I think there's no question about it. We don't disagree with any of that. We want for fair workplaces. We work very closely with WSIB to ensure, and in fact this summer we just had a recent announcement from Elizabeth Whitmer, the chair of WSIB. The unfunded liability is going to be cleaned off. WSIB rates are going to be coming down in the future as opposed to going up, which is a good thing.
Which is a very good thing, yes.
We've hit a milestone with that. But I think when you talk about fairness, I think that there's no question about it. Fairness is a priority. there should be no one doing the exact same job as another and making less money, save and except for tenure, experience, all of those things that need to go into the equation from a productivity perspective. But I think the reality of it is government's own numbers don't speak to why this was done. The political rhetoric around Bill 148 was to prop people up, these people who are the working poor. The fact of the matter is only 8% of all of those earning minimum wage are the working poor. The balance of the people making minimum wage are, second or third income in their families. They're students working at home, they're living at home and working. Not that they shouldn't be lifted up either, but the whole concept of Bill 148 and the rise in minimum wage was to take care of these individuals who are the working poor. Wouldn't it be better to have a platform that actually goes after and takes care of those people? Because I can tell you, $15 an hour isn't enough for a single mother raising 2 daughters. You know that.
I do know that.
So we need to give that person, that individual, more money than the $15 an hour. We need to help them. So
unfortunately, though, I find that there are a lot of people out there who, if they could, they wouldn't. They were not mandated to pay. They wouldn't pay. I mean, I've spoken with many
sure.
small businesses across this
There's
province who already pay 15
Yeah.
and more,
Yeah.
and more, and benefit
Yeah.
from that.
Mhm.
But I feel that we have to start somewhere. It's what I said. It's not a magic bullet.
Yeah.
It's not the magic amount of
Oh,
pay.
no.
But it's a start. What we're doing is raising the floor. This is the floor. We should do more, not less.
Mhm.
And that's just what I want
Yeah.
to establish. It's not that it
So,
should be the perfect.
We'll leave this subject
Yes.
alone any further, but all I will do is give you one more statistic.
Okay.
That in Canada, the average small, 98.6% of all businesses in Canada are small businesses defined by. The average income for an owner of a small business who has no unemployment insurance when their business goes down, they have no paid holidays, they have no pension, they've got to build it in. The average income is $74,000 a year for a small business owner. So the fact that they're multimillionaires that are living on islands and cruising on ships is completely false, and could venture to be called a distinct lie. It is not the case for the vast majority of small business owners. There are many of them that are also the working poor, because they're responsible for the people that they employ.
And I don't think that most of us believe that most small business owners are living on islands. And if they are, please can I buy into your business?
Yeah.
But I go back to what I said before, that we rise and fall together.
Mhm.
If we're going to build business, then it has to be a team effort.
Yeah.
It can't just be the business owner. It needs to
Yeah.
be his workers, which means they have to be invested
Yeah.
in his business, that they have to believe that they can make a difference, that they have to believe that they count,
Mhm.
and that they are important to them. And
That-
these are some of the ways
Then I
that
just
we
leave
will
you
do
with
that.
one word of wisdom. If you're
Yes.
elected, and Andrea is elected to lead the
Okay.
party, make a commitment that we're all on the same team.
We have to be on
That
the
we
same
all have to work together to make people rise up.
That-
we can't
that
we can't do it
is-
independently.
no,
we can't
absolutely not.
say your voice doesn't matter. Everybody's voice needs to matter to lift.
We rise or fall together
Yeah,
as a
no, I agree.
community every time.
Let's talk about fostering job creation and the modernization of the apprentice system. As you probably know, all you need to do is hire a plumber, and you find out that we're in a shortage of plumbers.
Yes.
We really have to start, we think, working with the education systems to make sure that not only are they teaching our young minds to make choices in life, but they're also helping to guide them and bringing an awareness as to what is available for them out there to do for a living.
That is a very key phrase. Options. Showing people what options are out there. And you're
Yeah.
quite right. And Andrea has really made that very clear, that we need to work with the educational systems, that we need to find, there's a gap there's definitely a gap. So we're putting people saying, yes, you know, you need to do trades, and we know we need the trades desperately. But between learning it here and getting an apprenticeship, which leads to a job, there seems to be a big hole in the middle.
Yeah.
There's not a bridge that gets from one to the other. And that is one of the things that I know that Andrea is very passionate about and talking about in our platform, about getting that way where we have the kids, where we have partnerships with people so that we're making sure that they're getting apprenticeships.
Yeah.
Instead of telling kids, oh, you've done this, now go and find an apprenticeship program. How are they?
Yeah.
You know, if you don't know people, if you don't have a circle around you that can help you to do that, you're never going to get it.
It almost speaks
so
to
we
that.
Have to.
It almost speaks to that last comment about
Yeah.
working together. You know, like government's got to invite business to say, hey, what are your needs? Like let's help reform this system so that we can make sure that everybody understands the options.
It will benefit us all.
For sure.
If we have the kids
Yeah.
have a clear path to apprenticeship,
Yeah.
which then, if they do well, will lead to a job.
Your
So,
platform speaks to making Ontario, returning it back to a manufacturing-dominated province. The U.S. Is a very close neighbor to us.
I would say so.
Impacts, you know, about 80% of everything that we produce in Ontario from a manufacturing perspective heads out.
Yes.
So competitiveness is really important. U.S. has reduced their tax rates ridiculously and made their businesses much more competitive. How then will an NDP-led provincial government here make it more attractive for manufacturers to come to Ontario when it might be more expensive to be here?
I'm not sure that it will be more expensive. I think that our taxation rates right now are lower than a lot of theirs. And I even think with our increase that we plan to do, we still will be competitive in the taxation rates across Canada and North America. So I think we still are competitive there. I think some of what will actually help us in this kind of a thing is maybe even our health system, where people come here and they don't have to. People who live here, they're not a burden on the organizations for health care or dental care or that kind of a thing. It kind of takes a burden down a little bit and makes it even a little more attractive. Our way of life, our community, how we interact, it's so different than in the States. And I think it has become very attractive to a lot of people.
It's a great place to live.
I'm
Center of the universe, Marjorie.
I'm telling you. And I think that this will attract people to us. And I think there are just other little things along the way that make it more attractive to others, other than dog eat dog and craziness that goes south of the border. And that's all I will say about that.
You brought it up about the healthcare. We're going to building healthy communities. Mental health is a big issue. The Ontario Chamber of Commerce and the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce are making that a core principle of things that we're going to be moving forward on, trying to be leaders in the community of dealing with mental health. We're developing toolkits for small business owners to be able to recognize mental health issues in their workplace so that they can have it dealt with and provide services for their employees. Because as you well know, in any business, an employee that's suffering from mental health issues or depression or whatever it happens to be is not going to be as productive. And we really can draw a straight line to homelessness, opioid use, all of that, right back to the core cause, which may be mental health. And so I think, mental health, concentrating on that and providing solutions and opportunities to deal with those could be the most dramatic impact on creating a society where there is less opioid use, there is less drug addiction, there is less homelessness.
I can't tell you how happy I am that businesses here are taking that track. Years ago, we lost our way in dealing with mental health. We closed down the beds, we closed down the organizations that looked after them, and we're paying for it now. I've been homeless. I and that famous bridges.
Mhm.
And it was one of the most awful things I've been through in my lifetime. But I tell you, if you are homeless and just the stress of that alone, and if you're like that long enough, you're going to get coping mechanisms. You're going to look for coping mechanisms. And unfortunately, that often ends with alcohol or drugs.
Yeah.
And it's all downhill from there. We desperately need to get a hold on this. And I am so proud of Andrea and her team in that we're going to have a ministry for this, for addictions and mental health.
Mhm.
I cannot stress enough how important it is that we get a hold of this. We need to help people. And we need to help them where they are. And we need to do whatever it takes to help them.
And it's about time we start dealing with the root cause of issues. Instead of continually putting Band-Aids on things, we need to get to those root causes. We need to be there in the very beginning and solve those problems so that we don't have to put as many Band-Aids on.
You know what? I say to people all the time when they ask me what is my biggest takeaway from our platform? My biggest takeaway is that we are investing in people.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have widgets and we don't have numbers. We have people.
Mm-hmm.
And people are important and we need to invest in them. And when we invest in them in these ways, then they're able to rise up and become productive.
Mm-hmm.
When they become productive and they're healthy workforce, oh my goodness, who's going to stop
Well,
us? Who's going to stop us? Nobody's going to be able to stop us. No, they can't. This is Ontario, remember? And Cambridge.
Yeah.
We're the center of the universe.
Our last pillar is government accountability, and I know Andrea has been all over this issue, and we have been too.
Mm-hmm.
So who's right, the government or the Auditor General?
And I think that if we have somebody who's an auditor general who is in a position to look over everything, who is someone who we can trust, someone who has the skills and the knowledge to look at things, I think we do a great disservice when we don't listen.
I'm with you all the way
We
there,
must
Marjorie,
listen.
there's no question.
You know what? I've heard so many things, inefficiencies, and we're going to find this, and we're going to find. We have somebody who looks out for us in this way. Why do we not listen? We must listen, and we must act, and we must do this. And that is one of the things that Andrea has said very firmly.
Yeah.
That we are
Well, I
going
know,
to be
and I
doing
know
that.
it was her idea to bring in the financial accountability officer that the Liberal government brought in. It was her idea way back 4 years ago. And you know, really understanding, you know, the government is saying that accounting organizations across the country have said what they did with the hydro debt was appropriate. The reality of it is what they really were saying is it wasn't illegal to do. But what the Auditor General is not disputing the legalities of doing it. What she's disputing is the fact that once the debt is captured in Hydro 1, it's now not revealed, it's not transparent anymore.
Exactly.
If it's held by the government, which in fact it is, we all owe that debt.
Yes.
It's not Hydro 1 that owes it, it's us.
That's
'cause
right. And we built it.
We will be paying it.
Yes.
So I think, you know, I would absolutely concur that the Auditor General is right on this, 100%. It is not an illegal procedure that the government did. It's just a morally wrong procedure that they did.
I keep looking back at the 407
Yep.
road, and people had to explain this thing to me
Yep.
because I couldn't understand. Well, how did we get here?
Yeah.
And I am very afraid that we would let hydro get there too, and it's not an option. It's not an option. We have people. You know what? It's like somebody standing on the side going, applause please.
Yeah.
You brought in that person to look at, but then you don't use them. It's no good. We don't want applause. We want action, and we want to be responsible. We want to be fiscally responsible. And if we have somebody in place who is qualified to say, look, this is not a good way to go, or this is how it should be, then we need to take that advice and go with it.
Do you think with technology today we can go out and do plebiscites whenever the government wants and get some accurate opinion? Because I think, you know, in Ontario you only need about 39% of the popular vote to be the government.
True.
But when you become the government, you then are responsible to 100% of the people.
That's
that
right.
voted, whether they voted for you or not.
That is right.
Wouldn't it make sense then that every major move that a government's going to make in Ontario, they should at least feel that they've got 51% of the support of the voter?
Well, I think it is very important that and I think part of this is where transparency comes in.
Mm-hmm.
People need to be able to see exactly what is happening,
Yeah.
and people need to be able to have a forum where they can express this so
Right.
that the government can take it into consideration. I worked at 15 Affairs, and I remember for 2 years I sat across the desk from Catherine McGarry. She and I have a great relationship.
Yeah.
And I would be, no, we got to do this. And she'd be like, Marjorie, this is not on the table. This is not on the table. This is not on the table. All of a sudden it was on the table. Why? You know why? Because we the people said so.
Yeah.
And the important thing to remember is it is we the people. We
Yeah.
are the government, but we are hired by we the people.
Yep. for
And
sure.
so for much of what we do, we should be in line with
Yeah.
what they want.
I would.
And so it's important.
2 quick questions.
Yes.
Or 1 quick question left, actually. Do term limits make sense to you?
That's something I'm thinking about. I find that,
Everybody has their best before date.
yes, and when that is another excitement. But really, I went back to school at 50.
Yeah.
My grandmother died at 105.
Well, I find-
still living by herself and still
And I find
doing
the only
well.
best before date that we care about is milk. Right?
I
Because
don't
milk
even
goes
drink
sour after that.
And that yogurt, I mean, that's sour already. No, but I think that is something that really needs to be looked at. I think that we need to encourage people to participate, to come in, and sometimes we need to step aside for the people to come up. So, you know, there's some merit to it.
Mhm.
And then there's also the merit that we have elder statespeople whose ideas and minds are very valuable to
Yeah.
us. So how do we make sure that we give a voice to both?
True, yeah.
But, you know, it's something that we will struggle with. But I think that at some point we need to be able to make way for new people,
Yeah.
new ideas, and things that we get to a certain age and we think a certain way.
Yeah.
And when somebody else comes up and goes, oh, hey, we could, and you're like, what? Oh, yeah, that's cool. But, you know, it wouldn't be intrinsic for us to jump up and go, oh, yeah, I thought of that. No. So we need fresh coming up
Yeah.
every now and then. So it's how we balance the two of them.
Well, somebody years and years ago told me if we always think the way we thought, we'll always get what we always got.
True.
And,
It's
you know,
true.
sometimes we need new thinking and
Yes.
new
Yeah.
ideas as
Yeah.
well.
That's true.
Marjorie, it's been wonderful, but what I want you to do right now is take a moment to speak directly to the Cambridge
Okay.
voters and tell them why they should vote for Marjorie Knight.
The one thing I want people to remember is that I have lived a life of an ordinary citizen. I have laughed and I've cried with my children, with my friends. I have worked very hard. I've worked at a minimum wage. I've had fabulous jobs which have gone overseas and left me, you know, in a position where I lost my house. I ended up homeless. I had to go back to school at age 50 because, you know what, I had to move forward. And I will always move forward. So I'm on the side firmly of the people of Cambridge. I understand your struggles. I've lived many of your struggles. And I firmly, firmly feel that the only way we will go ahead is to go together. And I am there to walk that walk with you. So if you can be part of my team, I'm part of your team, and we can go on together to do great things.
Well, there you've heard it. We hope that these videos help you to make an informed decision on June the 7th. We encourage you to reach out, talk to the candidates, and ask the questions on the issues that affect you most. But please, on June the 7th, please vote. I'm Greg DeRocher for the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for watching.
Thank you so much.
Yes, Margie.